What a way to start this show. All right, so welcome back to Wine About It Wednesday. Cheers.
Yay.
And
Cheers.
There you go. Today we have some interesting questions that we're going to talk about that we got from you guys about color analysis. And I think I have to say one of my favorite questions is going to be going into kind of color theory and the way it tricks our mind.
I know, isn't it? We got some really good, these questions. Normally we answer questions, right? When we get them, and we help people as we can. But these questions were the potential for fascination was so big that I thought, I really need to share these answers because they're really cool. It's cool information.
Yeah, so we're going to just be going over our top 4 questions that we got that we thought were really interesting that I know everyone would love and kind of work through, because we're going to have to be like actually looking at colors and color theory and looking back and forth to see how colors are manipulated in our mind, but not actually manipulated. So it gets really, really interesting. Let's dive into question number 1.
Okay. This is a question that I don't really hear from our viewers because our viewers are lovers of color and they really get it. But I hear it from the outside world a lot. When they say, well, what do you do? I'm a color expert, whatever. And they say, well, this is what I wrote. I don't really want to be told what color to wear. Really? Okay. Are the benefits worth giving up my own choice of colors? Very beautiful. We don't want to take away your choice in colors. That would be awful because we love color and we celebrate color. But what we want to do is adjust your basic color, maybe add a little more blue, maybe add a tint, maybe take it a little bit more toward gold, so that the nuances of your coloring fit the nuances of each of us. Sarah is a natural scientist, so she is the one who says why, how, what, and she wants to know the facts behind something. So this viewer additionally said, I've heard you call color analysis magic, but since magic isn't real, how does it really work? Good question.
It is.
And I think I told you guys, back in my youth, I studied set design. I was a set design major. Broadway, movies, that was my gig. That was what I studied. And I spent and I was a painter, and I spent a lot of time in lighting class. So all of these things sort of combined together to create a lifelong fascination with the properties of light, the play of light, and we flat out studied how do you light an actress that she looks younger? How do you all of these things? So what happens is color analysis takes into account a few different things, and I'll give you a little bit of history, but I'm not going to go into it a lot. 1888, a man named Johannes Itten noticed something about his students in art class. He was an artist and he taught. And he noticed that the students tended to use certain shades in their painting that were shades they wore in their clothing, and what flattered them and what didn't flatter them. And, in noticing just this, he ended up years later writing a whole book called The Art of Color. And it was kind of accepted in fashion circles in the US and throughout the world, where you had centers of fashion in that day, as gospel. And it was the basis of the 4 seasons color theory. And he called the 4 seasons, even though he called them seasons, he called them color types, because he noticed that when you got down to the basis of everything, there were really 4 color types: warm, cool, and light and deep. What happens is the first thing that color analysis takes into consideration is bounce light. And I don't know if you've ever been in a room where there is a big thing that is of a color. Let me say that there's a big red ball in the center of the inside of a room. What you will notice is that light bounces off that ball and the walls take on a pinkish cast. Right now, I have woods outside my window, and much of what you're seeing behind me is bounced light off wooded green landscape. So Basically, bounce light is an important aspect of color analysis because the light bounces off you, it bounces at a 45-degree angle, and it goes right up to your face. So what happens is, let's say that your face tends to be a little red, and you're wearing the wrong red. What happens? Your face will go redder. People will see you as redder. Let's say that you're wearing your complementary color and it's not the right shade. It will suck all the color out of your face because it neutralizes your color. Just like a color correcting concealer. It's like using the wrong color correcting concealer all over your whole face. So the bounce light is an important aspect, but there's also something called simultaneous contrast. And what that means is that if you put something in an area, that the law of simultaneous contrast says that it will pick up the opposing color. So if you're in the wrong red, it might make you look a little green. So we take that into consideration as well. In fact, don't we have some examples of simultaneous contrast where,
yeah, of course,
this photo, it looks like she's got kind of a red gel over half of the photo, and it looks like her eye on the left side is a turquoise green color. Yeah. It's not. It's exactly the same color as the photo on the right. It is gray. Exactly the same. You think you are seeing a green eye, but I assure you that eye is cut out of that red mask. So the simultaneous contrast is saying, hey, it's saying it to your brain, hey, look at all this red. And there's something in the field that's not red. What must be the opposite of red? And boom, this is what you get. And it's every color does this. Do we have another one of her?
Yeah. And I'm so blown away by these. These are like, I absolutely love looking at these types of color theories.
So we took the turquoise out of the eye color and thought, so what happens if we put a turquoise gel over her? It's lighter, it's not as intense. And suddenly you see that her eye goes from being gray to actually taking on a color. And it's in the color family, which would be the complement of the gel color, so that your eye is finding a shade for that eye color against this turquoise that it thinks is the right shade because of simultaneous contrast. But it's not what it's what you're seeing, but it's not really what's there.
And then the last one we have.
Again, you take something that's warm and you put it on a cool. And what happens? You see, and you have to look closely because this is not that obvious, but the eye has taken on a blue color.
Yeah, I'm blown away by these. I absolutely love.
But and then, I promise you, the grays of the eyes are identical, and I tested this.
And I have to say, I think the next question is my favorite. The diagrams we have for you guys, you're just going to be blown away on how much color can trick your mind. So I'm excited for this one.
Well, go ahead and bring them up because the next reason or the next effect that you see that's happening when you wear the right colors versus the wrong colors with how color will change something on a flat surface based on proximity. And this accounts for getting darker lines, beside the nose, getting darker circles, changing the color of your teeth. So what you see here is 3, 6, 9 squares. And one would think that 4 of the squares are white and 5 of the squares are off-white, right?
Yep.
No.
That's what I see.
No. What is real is that there is no difference whatsoever in the white squares that you're viewing. All of them are white. They're all the same color. Where you do see a difference is we have added a warm color line inside the blue line. And that's the simple act of having that warm color inside what is mostly a cool diagram has changed the way you see color inside the square. And now it's suddenly yellow-ish. That's why I get sallow. This is what you're seeing. Now, proof. Sarah, can we see where it's got a cool line inside the?
Yes. I'm going to hide this one and then grab that last one. There we go.
Okay. So here you see the same diagram with a cool line inside the squares. Now your eye, if you're looking at it carefully, your eye is kind of going,
Mhm.
do I need to adjust anything? Because this is not just blue. I see that it's purple and there might be a little red to it. Is it trying to go pink, but it's not quite going pink? And you'll see your eyes kind of going, wah, 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 trying to understand what it's seeing in terms of color. But if we can put the yellow up side by side, is that possible?
Yes, of course that's possible.
I could go on for days about different color combinations that we could use inside this diagram and how it will change. It changes white, for goodness sake. Imagine what it does to us, creatures of a myriad of colors. So
this is my absolute favorite diagram. I think it's so cool and fascinating, and it's unbelievable how all of these are exactly the same, but your mind is just tricking you to make one warm and one cool just because of the outlined color. Yeah.
Even color, you will look, honestly, thinner in the right colors. And because you are one straight line rather than being kind of a hodgepodge of head that doesn't really match the torso. It all works.
Mm-hmm. And I see another comment that I just wanted to bring up front. Susan, she says that if she wears orange, she looks yellow, and she doesn't know her season. Email us some pictures. So,
and there's one thing I can tell you today: you are not a spring.
Yeah, yeah. If you're saying that you look yellow when you wear orange,
we move right on to the other three.
Yeah.
So the third question, I love this question because it's another thing that kind of floats out there, and I'm sure people ask the question, but they don't really quite know how to get an answer to it. So what they said is, I've heard people saying they are a soft autumn or a warm spring. Mm-hmm. Aren't all springs warm? And what does this second modifier mean? Mm-hmm. Good question. Again, we got to go back into history a little bit and understand Johannes Itten. He divided people up into the 4 color types because they covered everybody in one way or another. But over the last 130 years, color science has evolved. And those of us who look at color a lot and study color, we've seen things. And even though the 4 categories cover everybody, within a category, let's say that you are, a spring. And you are warm and you are light. But within spring, some people are warmer than others. Some people are lighter than others. And some people are clearer, bolder than others. So if you're looking at somebody and you want to further categorize them, we have a 12 palette system. Now, we don't really use this for makeup. We don't use it for color wheels because when you get into that kind of nuance color, it's easy to have the viewer, have somebody who's color analyzing you make a mistake because it's subjective. As to how neutral you are, subjective as to how warm you are. But that's called the system of dominant characteristics. And in the UK, they don't even use seasons. They use 6 dominant characteristics: warm, cool, light, deep, soft, clear. Mm-hmm. And then they say, if you're running away from the scene of a crime, how would somebody describe you? Would they say that this girl was really light blonde hair? She might be a light spring. Mm-hmm. So why don't we take summer, for example? Summer, the 3 characteristics of a summer, more or less, is that you're cool, you're light, and you're soft. You're ishish. In my case, I'm not that cool. My skin tone, even though it is on the cool side, it's not really that cool. And I'm not really that light. I mean, if you look at me next to Sarah, no. So I am soft because everything about me is kind of blends together. I'm not that light, I'm not that cool, I'm soft. And each season has those characteristics. And if we had a little slider bar where we could, push somebody up if they were warm in their spring, then they might be a warm spring. If they have strawberry blonde hair, if their skin tone is warm, kind of golden, and if their eyes are a golden greenish color, whatever, warm spring. Take Sarah, for example. Sarah's an autumn. Mm-hmm. And in her category, she could be warm, she could be soft, or she could be light and she could be deep. So we look at that, and she's not deep because she's light. She's light. That's not really a category for her because her hair is deep.
Mhm.
So, and she's not that warm. Her hair is red, but it's more neutral than many redheads that you see who have flaming red hair or flaming autumn hair. So she's not that warm, and she's not that deep.
Mhm.
So she is soft.
Well, once again, I'm ish. I'm just, it's reddish hair. My skin tone, it's not warm, it's not really cool, it's just kind of ish. My eyes are ish. They're like,
There's nothing wrong with ish.
yeah, there's
It's just
greenish
soft.
gray. Mhm.
But obviously, there are other people, and there's another question coming up later that kind of plays into this, that where we can talk about different people. But that is the 12 palette system. There's also a 16 palette system. There's a computer-aided system that looks at your eyes and your skin, your hair and your skin. And so you can get nuance down to the nth degree. But what you will see in a lot of these extra systems that have looked at things more in depth is that the colors kind of remain the same through all of them.
Mhm.
So if you're a soft autumn, most of your palette, I'd say 80% of your palette is the same as if you're warm autumn.
Honestly, I would say pretty much all of it is the same. There's nothing that I can't wear that's in my swatch fan. So I have to, and they all come back to the 4 palettes, I should say. Everything is based off the 4 palettes, so it always comes back around.
Or Johannes Itten's 4 color types.
There you go. Your color type.
He wasn't the only person to recognize this and build information on it. Goethe, we know him. He was a famous philosopher. He did a whole treatise on color. Alfred Munsell also, color science is big, but they kind of all boil down to warm, cool, light, deep, and then looking at contrast, soft versus clear.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, what question was that? I'm completely
number 2. That was question number 2. We're
right.
headed into question number 3, and I can expound on this forever because I'm an artist. I mix paint daily to do my hobby, and I'm all about looking at mixing dyes versus mixing pigments and the difference. And so this person says, "I've heard you call something a cool red.
Mm-hmm.
Is that red a warm color?"
And we always bring up this question as a tricky one. This one does trip people up.
It does, but it's part of the way we put your palette together.
Mm-hmm.
So we want you to be able to wear red, and there are such a thing as cool reds. There are also such a thing as warm reds. Our viewer who says, and I'm sorry, I forgot your name, and I don't have it in front of me, but our viewer that says, "I can't wear orange," more than likely she can wear a cooler version of orange. Is like you take gold and you mix it with primary red and you get orange, or you take yellow and red and you get orange.
And that was Susan.
Susan, I apologize. This is for Susan. So if you can't wear orange, you probably want to look on the cooler side of red. So you take red on the color wheel and you mix it with blue. And anything along that line where you've added blue is a cooler version of red than the basic red that you see on the color wheel. And this kind of works all the way around the color wheel. But unless you're mixing a complementary color, in which case you get mud. And that's one of the reasons why complementary colors, you use them to your advantage around your eyes and whatever, but you try to stay away from them when it's part of your palette. You want something that's harmonious. And the same is true of blue. Let's say blue is as cool as it gets. And to make a color cooler, you add blue, right? But what happens when you add yellow, which is golden yellow? You get green. Mm-hmm. And on that spectrum of having the most yellow, then that green becomes a warm green. As to having no yellow, then you've got a blue green, or and it moves down around the spectrum back to blue. And again, the same is true on the color wheel when you mix blue and red. Blue and red, as we all learned with our boxes of crayons, make purple. And so when you want to make a blue look a little warmer, you add yellow, and that goes toward blue-green. But when you want to just continue kind of moving the cool way, then you add a little purple. You can add a little purple, and you get a more chilly blue. And purple, same deal. And so your color fan, we've adjusted every single color in the color fan to either complement your softness or your clarity or your warmth or the lightness of you or the depth of you. And it works. So that's the answer. And then I was thinking that someday, and I'd love to do this just for fun, I'd bring in my paints and I mix color for you because it can get complicated. Right.
It really can.
If you're these days, when you print, you're printing with inks, which are kind of dye based. Some of them are pigment based. But again, that something we learned when we were kids with our box of crayons is that when you mix red and blue, it's not a very pretty purple. It's kind of a not beautiful purple. But now we have dye-based color. Red has become magenta. And then you mix magenta and turquoise, which is the base in terms of dye-based color wheel, and you get the most vivid colors like fuchsia and hot pink. And so it's complicated. But I think I answered your question. But there's so much more to share in terms of there's additive color mixing. So, Sarah, you just say hush when I go too far afield. But additive color mixing, which is when you mix the color of light versus subtractive color, it's so amazing. It's a great thing.
Now that we've gone, well, we're still on topic, I guess I should say, because that was just answering another question. But our last question, and this one we get a lot. We get a lot of people asking, is this person this season or that season? Or is this person a winter or a summer? And we get this all the time.
And I wish there were a definitive answer to that. But sometimes there isn't, because usually the people they ask are in the public eye. And people who are in the public eye, I've noticed, tend to change their hair a lot, especially actresses, actors.
And we always have this question around, like Reese Witherspoon. She's usually the one where people, is she a summer or is she a spring?
And do you know why they ask that? Reese Witherspoon changes her hair a lot. And so sometimes you'll see her and there's no red or gold highlights. And sometimes you'll see her and there are lots. It's real golden. Her blonde is real golden. Now, I'm not talking about what happens when a flash bulb brightens somebody up, because then their hair will tend to go, if you're indoors, your hair will tend to go a little bit warmer simply because of the register of the lighting, whether it's the flash or whether it's the light in your home. And I don't know if you've ever noticed, but if you're buying fluorescent bulbs or regular bulbs for that matter, anything other than common incandescent bulbs, you'll see a color temperature on the bulb. And it usually has that little slider bar, and you can get really warm or you can get really cool light. And all of those things contribute to a person what you're reading as their hair color. But this question specifically, she said, my friend and I have an ongoing argument that we need you to settle. Is Reese Witherspoon a spring or a summer? And as I said, it depends on her hair. And sometimes it's more golden, and sometimes you see it and it's blonde without, it's more of an ash without any gold. Now, what I will say is I prefer Reese, the look of her, without the golden. I think she can look brassy when her hair is done and it looks really like a gold blonde rather than the cool blonde. So naturally, her natural season. And I think if I had a choice and I was going to put her in a season forever, I would say she's a summer. She looks naturally like a summer.
And has the natural characteristics of a summer as well.
But again, she tans, so her skin tone, when you see, could be a little warmer, but the eyes, the color of her lips, it all, I think that when she has that hair and it's a little more toward gold, it tends to look brassy on her. And that is a clue. If you have your hair done and the word is used, brassy, that means that you are not warm enough inherently, everything else, to pull off that warm hair. And you need to back off that. And how many blue rinses do we see that are out and about now to combat, and that's the word they use, brassiness? Well, what is that telling you? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
And,
it's just, yeah, it's trying to push you a little bit cooler or as cool as you can.
and I think it's good to think about other summers who were just summer, 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 and it doesn't really change. Like Grace Kelly. Never, ever did you hear the term brassy used for this woman. She always had, hair that was no red or gold highlights, and she had the eyes and she had the skin tone. She was the consummate summer.
Mm-hmm.
Who else, Sarah? Hillary Clinton
Mm-hmm.
is a summer. Even though she can put a little gold, a little lean on the gold side a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? Uh, Jennifer Aniston, summer. And as soon as her hair goes golden honey, it's not as good
Mm-hmm.
as when there are no red or gold highlights.
Mm-hmm.
But there are famous springs, who could pull off the gold in the blonde beautifully, like Nicole Kidman, obviously,
Oh yeah.
Goldie Hawn,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Kate Hudson. She can pull off Blake Lively, another fantastic example. They're golden girls, and Amy Adams, another.
Yeah, Amy Adams is like a typical spring as well. I would say Nicole Kidman and Amy Adams. When you think of springs, those are the two that instantly pop into my head.
Yeah, I get Goldie too because her eyes are a little more on the turquoise side, and she's like her name suggests, she's kind of a golden girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, not to let any of you autumns or winters feel left out. Who are some famous autumns? Who do we just and I'm saying this because even when their hair changes, they're still in autumn.
Mm-hmm.
Like Sophia Loren, when she dyes her hair blonde, or when she dyed her hair blonde in movies or whatever, she was still in autumn because the hair just looked like it was sitting on top of her head from like it dropped out of an airplane and it just landed on her head.
I instantly think of J-Lo. Whenever I hear autumn, J-Lo, and also Julia Roberts. Beyonce. Yeah, Beyonce. She has that very golden skin tone, really warm. Oh yeah. Julia Roberts is another one that I always think of.
And Bette Midler used to be in autumn. I don't know what color her hair is these days, and I haven't really seen any pictures. But back in the day, she was in autumn. Marcia Cross, Julianne Moore, Susan Sarandon, a bunch of autumns. And again, you can tell that they're kind of the consummate autumn is when their hair color changes. If it's not in that palette or not appropriate for an autumn, it looks like it's sitting on top of their head like a wig. And have you ever noticed that? Have you seen people who change their hair color and then they look like they're wearing a wig, like it doesn't fit? Mm-hmm. That's it. Mm-hmm. And of course, we have to talk about winters.
Oh yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
I know that you always go with
Elizabeth Taylor. She is just like the winter, consummate winter. Even when her hair went gray, it was salt and pepper. Absolutely winter. But today, the Elizabeth Taylor look of our day, Megan Fox.
Oh, yeah.
That Snow White look about her. Anne Hathaway.
Oh, yeah. And that's our typical winter example is Anne Hathaway.
Viola Davis.
Oh, Viola Davis. Yeah. Very cool skin tone, deep hair. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And who else we recently did? Oh, Kerry Washington, because she has the deep hair, but she does have a very rich skin tone. So when we did put her in something rich and warm, she looked awesome. So and once again, of course, we're going back and forth.
Now, remember what I said before about you can be more of one category than another category. Another person that I thought was interesting, Halle Berry. She is so golden. Everything else is so golden. And she did a movie where she played Dorothy Dandridge, and Dorothy Dandridge had black hair, and they dyed her hair black, and she was an amazing winter. So, in some of her most favorite famous pictures of her, she's been in autumn colors. Mm-hmm. Again, somebody who is close enough to neutral that they can, kind of move both
back
ways.
And forth. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that a lot. I'm trying to think of Lupita Nyong'o.
Mm-hmm. Winter.
She's a winter. Yeah, she has a very cool skin tone. So, that's just kind of where she's somebody that it would be harder for her to move over to autumn just because she does have the cool skin tone and she has naturally cool hair. So it would be really hard. But like we said earlier, Beyonce, she has a very warm skin tone, warm hair. So those two kind of stay put.
And we've had some great viewer comments too about folks and adding Polly asks if Nicole Kidman would be a spring. Yeah, she's a spring because she's so light. And, you know, she's got the very pale complexion and the strawberry blonde hair that puts her in a spring. And it means that she can wear more vibrant colors. Picture her in your mind in olive green. She doesn't really, I mean, it wouldn't make you want to like rip her clothes off and burn them, but she's the spring. She is the classic spring.
The very strawberry color that's going on with her hair. Classic.
And of course, in the notes, everybody loves Grace Kelly. Yes, she was beautiful.
Amy was Sandra Bullock. How did we not say Sandra? Yes. Winter all the way.
Yes. But, and Julia Roberts, autumn all the way. But sometimes, you know, you might see them in roles where they've dyed their hair, and pay particular attention, you colorists out there, because when a celebrity dyes their hair, things get weird, you know, and you want to pay particular attention to what you're seeing.
Yeah, I always think of Sandra Bullock with her jet black hair, but I feel like I want to say something. I have seen her with like a golden brown, but I can't remember.
I can't put my finger on it either, but I know that I've seen her. And sometimes what happens is people with black hair want highlights.
Yeah. And they go orange.
You know, you have beautiful black hair. If you start thinking highlights, you need to be extremely careful, because, you know, kind of the natural way to go with the highlight is to make it blonder or something. Then you got real problems understanding what your season is, getting yourself into flattering colors, because, you know, you've got this dichotomy on your head of warm and cool.
Yeah.
And that makes it difficult. And Kim says she wishes we had photos of these winters. We will show you winters, but we are very careful about showing photos of celebrities. Annie Potts, Holly mentioned Annie Potts from Designing Women. Yeah, agreed. She thinks she's an autumn. Although I have seen her as a blonde. And as a blonde, she's close enough to that. She's not really deep, but her hair is deep. But when she lightens it, I've seen her, she can pull off spring.
And that just those slight little tweaks can change somebody. Like the slightest little bit of highlights or color changing or hair change, a dye job, slightest little bit can change somebody. It's so important if you do end up changing your hair, or if you've been out in the sun and the sun's bleached your hair a little bit, it's important to take the color quiz. And of course it's free, so you can take it as many times as you want. You can do it all day long if you're so inclined.
And Kim says that she feels like she has autumn eyes and winter skin. Well, honey, what we really need to look at is your hair. Send us a photo and we can help you out with that.
Yeah.
And Deborah asks a great question. Is Queen Elizabeth a winter or a summer? Queen Elizabeth is a summer. And here's why I put her in summer. Does she have salt and pepper gray hair? No, she has grayish hair. It's soft. It's like a halo. You know, she's somebody you just want to hug.
But it's also not pure white. I think that's another. It's
right. So if she were a winter and is still a winter, that hair would be pure white, and it's not.
Yeah, I don't see that.
So we would definitely say that she is a summer.
Yeah. All right.
And then let's see what else we have. Amy says that she thinks Sandra Bullock is an autumn. We need to take another look, obviously, because most of the pictures that we've seen her in recently, we've seen black hair. So,
but once again, Amy's pointing out when she has dark brown hair. So
yeah, of course, and I think Sarah pointed out that there have been times when her hair has been dark brown, possibly from highlights, maybe not. I don't know. But
the moment that golden brown shows up in there, she goes into autumn.
And Kim says that she did send photos. Let me tell you, we have such a backlog of mail. And I apologize because I have not been able to get to it. Sarah's not been able to get to it, but we will get to it. Do not worry. We will get to it, and you will get the answers that you're looking for. And Amy just said, and I think this is really a really good comment. I saw Her Majesty in a pale, icy aqua suit and hat, and she was amazing. So,
Mhm.
that just it goes to show you how incredible you can look and feel at any age if you're in the right color.
Mhm. All right. So I hope we got to everyone's comments. Of course, we've gone over time like always, but I'm so glad that everyone could join us today for Wine About It. And we just want to say thank you for being here with us.
Yeah. And those of you who are always here, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you so much
And so
for being
cheers to,
members of the family.
yes, cheers to everyone
Cheers.
out there and have a wonderful week.